Welcome to the KISC My Health Radio show series on Building Fortunes Radio. KISC My Health is brought to you by the universally recognized Cranberry King, Captain Cran Man Stephen Lukawski. Over the past 30 years, Stephen has worked with North American dietary supplement companies in the nutraceutical industry. His efforts and connections generate ingredient sales through innovative delivery systems and effective marketing and brand management strategies. Today on KISC My Health, Stephen is joined by guest host Peter Mingils. Make sure you check out previous KISC My Health episodes at www.buildingfortunesradio.com or KISCMyHealth.com. Along with our marketing partners, we are here to help our customers improve their health, build their businesses, and make the world a better place. At KISC My Health, we know how much your health and your business means to you and the people important to you. So spread the word, tell another friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world. Now, on to our show with your hosts, Captain Cran Man and Peter Mingils. Take it away, Peter.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingils here. You are listening to our KISC My Health Radio show with Stephen Lukawski. And again, my name is Peter Mingils. I always like to give our new listeners a little bit of an origin, if you will, of where the heck did you get that KISC thing from and how did this show get started? Well, a long time ago on my radio station, Building Fortunes Radio, I had a special segment with a gentleman named Attorney Jim Turner. So he was an attorney over in Washington, D.C. They ran an organization still in business called Citizens for Health. Citizens.org is their domain name, and Jim Turner was one of the best people I've ever met on the planet. He was an attorney forever. He started the very beginning of Citizens for Health in 1993. He was an original Ralph Nader Raider, for those people who are familiar with Ralph Nader, and he wrote a book called The Chemical Feast, and he was an overall really super good guy, but really knowledgeable. And we did radio shows every week, Friday at noon, for about a dozen years, or 10 years at least. And they were great, and they're still up there on the Building Fortunes Radio platform. You should listen to them. They're excellent because Jim was on them. Well, Jim passed away in January of 2022. And anybody who's ever lost a mentor or somebody really knowledgeable, they could always have a friendly conversation that you just knew way more than you did about most topics that he was familiar with. I begged them, the people over at Citizens, to please find me a replacement, because when Jim passed away in 2022, there was a hole, not only in the radio show, but also in my mentorship. And we'll talk about mentorship as we go through this radio show as well. Well, they finally found me James Gormley. And James Gormley, and this is really where the story starts. James Gormley was the president of Citizens, an author, overall really great guy, equally just like an amazing man. And we did a couple of radio shows, and that's where this gets even closer to getting started. James Gormley asked me, hey, can I have a guest speaker? And I said, sure. Who do you want? It's Stephen Lukawski. And I said, I'm not from your world. I'm not unfamiliar with him. Who's Stephen Lukawski? The King of Cranberries, he said, inquisitively. Like, how can you not know? I'm like, okay. Captain Cran Man. I'm like, this guy sounds like he's fun. So let's do it. So I didn't know that much about cranberries, besides what normal people, I think, know, if you call me normal people, know. And Stephen did a great radio show on cranberries. I was never so excited about cranberries in my whole entire life. He had a LinkedIn. I joined his LinkedIn, and over the next couple of months, I formed one of those relationships with Stephen that he didn't know about. Like, he forgot who I was. But I remembered who he was, because on his LinkedIn, he would send posts and really cool things. And I'm like, I like this guy. Well, tragically, in August of 2024, James Gormley passed away. I'm getting to that. So James Gormley passed away, and that was really tragic because I decided that, I got to call Stephen, because even though he doesn't remember me as much as I remember him, I know he knows James Gormley. So I called him up, told him he already knew because he was working with James Gormley at the time, and he said, we got to do something for James. I agreed. Can't let someone like that go, unremembered. I agreed. Let's do like a memorial radio show for James Gormley. And somewhere in that conversation, I said something about, I'm doing this KISC thing. KISC for me stands for Keep It Simple Circle. It's a training that I've always done. I kind of invented it. You could, it's just, if you work for me, you know what I'm talking about. So I said, the KISC training, the Keep It Simple Circle. Stephen said, wait a minute, let's do this. We'll do a KISC My Health, radio show series. And I said, okay. And I said, okay. He says, well, I know a lot of people. This is Stephen. I know a lot of people who are in the natural ingredients industry that they need to have their voices heard about now. Like, they're alive. They're making a difference in the world, and I know a lot of them. And we could do this. And I said, I'm all in. So I bought KISCMyHealth.com, KISC myhealth.com. And when I bought that, we started. And I said, Stephen, KISC for me stands for Keep a Simple Circle. What does KISC for you stand for? And if anybody knows Stephen, he's super creative. He's like, oh, this piece of cake is going to stand for Key Influencers Super Champions. And that's always a lot of fun. And then sometimes he talks to people that run corporations, so KISC stands for Key Influencers Super Corporations. And in December of 2025, we had all these Canadians on, because Stephen's from Canada. And all these Canadians are great, so KISC stood for Key Influencers Super Canadians. So whatever KISC stands for this week, it doesn't matter. It's good because Stephen Lukawski is here. And we're kind of launching Planet Cranberry, and you'll learn a little bit more about that as we go, but we're here all in with Planet Cranberry as well, and Stephen's into that, of course, and he'll maybe sprinkle some of that information in this radio show too. But Stephen Lukawski, I want to say thanks to our corporate sponsors, thanks to our active and our passive listeners. Hint, hint. A passive listener is someone just listens. An active listener is someone that shares, so thanks for all our active listeners, and I want to certainly say thank you, Stephen, to you, because if it wasn't for you, we would never have all of these 100-plus interviews that we've done so far on KISC My Health Radio. So, Stephen, take it over.
Thank you, Peter, and hello, everybody out there listening to KISC My Health Radio, where we're going to have another amazing interview with one of the legendary leaders in the natural product industry. And you're right, Peter, we've done over 100-plus interviews, and we keep growing. And we are just, spotlight on these natural product leaders are amazing because they come on air, they give us their time, they share their career journey and success story. They give us, the listeners, great advice on to how to, overcome challenges and daily tasks and how to stay focused and how to climb that ladder both professionally and personally. I call them world makers, difference makers. They're role models. They always go the extra step, always helping others succeed while sacrificing their own needs. They're all gifted with servant heart leadership styles. This is one of the qualities that stand out from the other people out there in the industry. And I just, I'm really thrilled that our co-sponsors are promoting this show because it's not for profit. We don't monetize this. This is not about products or services or companies. This is about people. And this is about people behind the scenes that deserve the credit. It's really celebrating their life journey and what they've accomplished and how they were able to deal with everyday challenges. And it's just, our sponsors like Heather Weiner from the Whole Foods magazine and her team, they've been there every step of the way to help us with our show from day one to now over 100-plus shows. They've been there helping us promote these legacy leaders. RFI has stepped up to be a sponsor, and thank you, Jeff and the team over there, Paulo and Tricia, for the great work that you do at RFI and for being a part of our success story. And then Pure Organics, the sweetener company, they're leading the way in organic sweeteners. They've been involved right from the last 3, 4, 5 months. They've wanted to come on board, and they want to change the world in the area of diabetics and provide, sweeteners that are sugar-free and alternative. And we're excited to have them as a sponsor. So moving forward, without further ado, I would like to introduce our next superhero guest. And, you're right, Peter. KISC stands for Keep It Simple. It's a circle for you, and for us, it's Key Influencers, Super Celebrities, or Super Champions. But Greg Cumberford, welcome to the show, Greg. Thank you for joining KISC My Health Radio.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen. And it's really helpful for me to hear both from you and Peter sort of the background of KISC My Health. And I'm really, of course, honored to be here. I will say in the 30-plus years of my time in the industry, I've never been interviewed like this before. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for sharing your story with us and finding the time to be with us today. And for our listening audience, you are in for a special treat. So don't go away. Listen to, grab a beverage if you can, but for the next 2 minutes, we are going to listen to Pure do a commercial break for us.
Here we go.
KISC My Health Radio welcomes our corporate sponsor, Pure Organic. What if reducing sugar didn't mean giving up the foods and drinks you love? That's the philosophy behind Pure, spelled P-Y-U-R-E, at pureorganic.com. Pure believes that if healthier food doesn't taste great, people simply won't stick with it. So they've created a full line of plant-based, organic, and organically sweetened sugar alternatives designed to deliver the sweetness you love without the sugar overload. From granulated sweeteners and liquid syrups to their powerful single-ingredient stevia extract, Pure makes it easy to sweeten your coffee, upgrade your recipes, and enjoy better choices without sacrificing flavor. And Pure is not just helping consumers at home. They also work behind the scenes with food, beverage, and supplement companies nationwide, helping brands reduce sugar while maintaining the taste, texture, and experience customers expect. With decades of expertise in food science and formulation, Pure is helping reshape the future of sweetness. Want to learn more about Pure? See their full line of products, discover their story, and explore what makes them different at pureorganic.com. That's P-Y-U-R-E organic.com. Visit pureorganic.com today and taste the future of sweetening. At KISC My Health Radio, we want to thank Pure for being our corporate sponsor. Now back to our show. Take it away, Peter.
Okay, let's get started. Mr. Stephen Lukawski, what a great commercial. Thanks, Pure, for being one of our corporate sponsors.
Up and away as Captain Cran Man now has the opportunity to interview Greg Cumberford. Greg, there's a lot of people out there saying, who is this guy? Why is he on the air? What has he done for 30-plus years? And those are people even in our natural product industry wondering this, Greg. So if I can, let me just share with our listening audience before we begin the interview a little background of you, of who you are and what you've been doing for 30-plus years. So Greg has a 30-plus year career as a natural product industry executive and a thought leader in regenerative, vertically integrated botanical wellness solutions, including one of my favorite ingredients, ahi flower oil. He serves as a science and business development lead with Nature's Crop International, having joined senior management in 2013. His career spans clinical study design and management, botanical products farming, manufacturing, and quality management, R&D, and nutraceutical product innovation. Greg regularly speaks and authors the industry and peer-reviewed papers on plant-based health science, R&D, and regenerative supply chain sourcing. He is the vice president of Bent Creek Institute, Inc., based at the North Carolina Arboretum. He serves on the Science Committee of Women in Nutraceuticals. Yay, go, win, go! And is a sponsor of the Sustainable Herbs Initiative. He and his family reside in Oregon's Willamette Valley at Mandorla Farms, a nature preserve and horse education rehabilitation center in the Pacific Northwest, which I want to hear more about, Greg. He enjoys culinary travel and backcountry hiking, painting, poetry, and eco-philosophy writing. Having founded a book publishing house, Kivaki Press, in the early 1990s, Greg has a BSc degree in environmental earth science from Stanford University and Phi Beta Kappa. Right? So, Greg, what a journey so far, and your best years are still ahead of you. You're still young.
Well, I'm in my 60s, but I still feel young.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we're all three of us, Peter, you and me, we're in our 60s. And, for me, I'm a 30-year-old man trapped in my body. And I feel alive, I feel great, and I feel like the younger kids keep me motivated. They keep me polished. My tools are always being sharpened in the box with the learning, because I want to be teachable every day. I want to learn. I'm a SpongeBob. So, Greg, I know for sure what you are doing is changing the world, and I want to hear more about it. But we will not let age define us. No way. All right.
Yep.
Very excited about the future for us. But so, Greg. Yeah, okay. So, Greg, let me ask this question. I always thought, Nature's Crop, is it a Canadian company or a U.S. company?
Well, it's both. The headquarters is in the USA, but the majority of our employees and our operations are in Prince Edward Island in Canada. So it's a I guess you'd say a subsidiary, Nature's Crops Limited in Prince Edward Island, and then the corporate entity is in North Carolina, actually, in the U.S.
Okay. So really we're a North American company here, Nature's Crop International. Now, are you an American or are you a Canadian?
I am a U.S. I'm American.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you were born in the U.S. then? Can you tell us a little bit about, your background, where you were born?
Yeah, sure. I was born in Pasadena, California, but I grew up mostly in towns in coastal Connecticut on the East Coast, living near tidal salt marshes and rocky beaches of Long Island Sound. That's where I grew up. It was a pretty idyllic middle-class childhood. I spent most of my time outdoors and in and around boats and swimming and skateboarding and biking everywhere with friends. I was doing team sports like baseball and soccer and hiking in forests and around reservoirs, that kind of stuff. And from an early age, because I was spending so much time in nature, I was kind of learning from watching things like watching seabirds and fishing for snapper and digging clams and mussels and, listening to my free-thinking parents and their friends in the 60s and 70s, talking about wild ideas of how we were going to change the world.
Well, let's talk about your parents for a bit here. Mom and Dad, what did they do? And did you ever get a chance to visit with your grandparents?
I did. It's a little complicated with me because my mom and my stepfather were both from California. I actually never knew my biological father. So my grandparents really were just on my mom's side that I knew. But my mom and my stepdad grew up in what were in the 1940s sort of primarily farm country, although one was in Southern California and one was in Northern California. But they were also just much more oriented towards being connected with nature and the elements. And I think that has definitely played a key role in my life. Both of them are still living, but they're living separately. They're in their mid-80s, and unfortunately both have dementia. But they really taught me some key values that have really stuck with me throughout my life, and probably the most important ones are things like keeping my word and being trustworthy, and working diligently towards ambitious goals, believing in myself, and striving towards my dreams, my true north. They really taught me to, like you just said at the top of this, to keep learning. Always view life as learning opportunities, and including from failures and disappointments. And I remember my dad saying to me when I was a boy that health and trusted friends are the greatest forms of wealth. And that has always really stuck with me. And for my mom, I would say that in the quiet and the kind of awe of nature lies a source of our physical and spiritual renewal. And that's always been true for me as well. And we always had dogs. So I've always had dogs my whole life.
And what kind of dogs did you have?
Oh gosh, I mean, we've had retrievers. We've had my childhood dog Pirate, who I lived with for more than 12 years. He was actually kind of a lab Sheltie mix. He was an incredible dog. So I mean, I've had our dog right now that we've had for almost 8 or 9 years. He's actually a Chiweenie. He's like 11 pounds. So yeah, they're beautiful animals, and I want to hear more when we get into the show as we go through this. Whether or not any of that ahi flower oil is great for pet nutrition. Yeah, for sure. But your mom and dad, what did they do? For their careers. Well, my father was actually quite varied. He was an entrepreneur, but my mom and the man who I call my father, my mom was actually divorced twice and married 3 times by the time I was 9 years old. It was a bit of a I was exposed to a fair amount of uncertainty and a lot of kind of logistical movement, a lot of plans not working out. But in my childhood, but my mom was a boat person. She grew up as a boat person, and so during this time, she was actually working as a yacht broker and as a boat charter person to do charters down into the Caribbean. I actually lived for 2 years as a young boy on a sailboat in the Caribbean. Wow. And that was a big formative experience for me. But, her unconditional love for me and my younger brother, and her persistence in sort of, staying true to the things that she truly loves still informs my attitude in business. Because business is so much about relationships, about communicating clearly and, staying true to a shared long-term vision. And my early childhood with my mom, and then later with my dad when I was about 9, was, it's like a key learning, I think, was that even though key players and leaders and locations will change in your life or in your business, and sometimes quite abruptly, staying true to shared goals and values, and even learning from difficult people and their decisions is more likely to yield success in the long run. And my parents, when they got together, they actually combined and created a yacht delivery business. So this is in the 70s, if you had a boat and you didn't want to sail it from say New Brunswick to somewhere in the British Virgin Islands, you would have to hire somebody to do that. And so they had a company that did that. And so they were both very entrepreneurial. We lived with a lot of material uncertainty, and that was just kind of how I grew up. And my father, whose surname Cumberford I took when I turned 18 years old, he was a naval officer in Vietnam. And then after Vietnam, he became a serial entrepreneur. And he was an open ocean sailor for much of his life, but he was also an MIT Sloan Fellow. And he was a pretty multi-talented business planner. I learned a lot from him as a boy and as a teenager about the essentiality of good business planning. And I learned a lot from him about, just risk-taking and entrepreneurship and, kind of being on the leading edge of innovation. And I also learned from his life experience about, how hard startups can be and to run successfully. So, those are some of the core things.
Well, thank you to your father, your stepfather, for his service and what he has gone through, and to be able to because that's resiliency, to be able to take those memories, put them aside, and create new ones in the world of the business. And because not everybody's got cut out in the business world. You need a strong stomach in the business world, because there's more. There's things you just don't learn at university or colleges in the business world today. And you need to be streetwise. And agree. Today. Yeah, and your mom sounds like a free spirit, she followed her dreams. It seems that being on the water was her passion.
Yeah. It absolutely was, and absolutely always has been. She still lives close to the water, but yeah.
No, that's great. And so you have a younger brother.
I do.
Hi, you want to share a little bit about that?
He lives actually with my mom in Beaufort, South Carolina, so close to the water. And he works actually at a marine ship's chandlery. So if you're a boat person and you need anything for your boat, you go to a ship's chandlery, and he manages a store in Beaufort that taps into a lot of his skills in all things related to boat construction, boat maintenance, boat management, on and on. He as a younger person, was also a boat delivery person. So, yeah.
That is quite amazing. We're going to talk about how you got into the natural product industry, because because it seems like your brother followed your mom's steps, and you followed your dad's steps in the world of entrepreneurship. Let's go on to your career of your education and educational side of things. Was there?
And I will say, because if my brother ever listens to this, he'll want me to mention that he does also have a PhD in philosophy.
Yeah. My brother has a PhD in philosophy. He became a minister, and a Lutheran minister with that. Theologian, and saving the world, and God bless him. And we go through high school, public school, high school, and then we go to college or university. Was there, during that time period, was there a teacher, a coach, or a mentor that had a major impact on your during that time period?
I had a lot of. I was really blessed. I really too many to list, but I had many junior and senior high school teachers who were interested in me and really instrumental in forming my interests and my work ethic. And I was a person who was doing all kinds of things like a cappella singing and acting in plays, learning new languages and playing sports, and I just had a really great sort of ground team of teachers, and I think this all kind of impacts how I still approach new challenges in my business life, and how I mentor others as well. I just feel like even though I kind of came from a sort of rocky start in my upbringing, it was my teachers, my art teacher, my history teacher, some of my English teachers, they all really helped to form me, and my openness to learning and taking on new things.
It seems that your teachers, they saw, as a lot of teachers do, the potential, the talents, the skill sets that you had.
Yeah.
And it sounded like they also could have been maybe your rock and your island. Someone steady in your life at an early age that could guide you and
yes.
help you peel back the onion of who you are and what you're capable of doing, so you could see that in the mirror of yourself.
Yeah. I had an 8th grade science teacher. His name was Fred Bump, and he was very much like that. In high school, I had a history teacher, Dr. Woodruff, who was very much like that. He just, I had a lot of people who really engaged me where I was in my process, and I appreciated that so much.
Yeah, I think, we need to really have a confidence built at an early age. And, because growing up is not easy. It doesn't matter, given your childhood background, everyone has a history. And how we start out is not necessarily how we finish in life. I always say that, that it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And what you do with your gifts and your blessings that the good Lord's provided us. And to be able to touch the lives of other people along your journey. And to leave a footprint in the sand, all right, to make this world a better place. And your dad's right. It's the relationships we develop with people that really define our wealth, not the money in the bank account.
Yep. No, I very much live that and believe that.
Yeah. So we look at your education. Did you have you enjoyed acting? You said. I thought I got that right.
In high school, I did some acting at the behest of some of my some people who I'm still friends with to this day. Yeah.
That is great. Well, I think in the business world, I hate to say this, but you're dealing with so many different personalities, and you can't let the last phone call affect the next phone call, right? You got to separate the two, and so you have to put on a happy face, right? And you really need to be able to the man of many faces, in the world of business. Right, so you don't show that emotional side, because in the world of business there is no emotion, and it's like it's all business transaction oriented. So did the acting in what you learned, did that play a role and influence you at all in the world of business?
Now that you mention that, I would say it did, in the sense that. Being able to be spontaneous and, to be extemporaneous in life and not feel scripted. But a lot of the exercises that you do in acting, even though when you're in a play you actually are, you are part of a script, but the exercises that you do around acting to be flexible and be able to play to embody a character. Those were definitely things that are part of how I am. And one of the things I was thinking I would mention is that when I was living in the Caribbean as a boy, it was mostly in the Bahamas as a young boy, on a sailboat, spending a lot of time with Bahamian kids and around all sorts of sailors and salty characters, opened me early on to just how big and culturally diverse the world is, and from a business standpoint to really embrace diversity, multiculturalism, and just multiple ways of seeing challenges, and strong women leaders. Bahamian women are strong women, family leaders, and to just be really honoring of that, and to never feel that I'm alone, even if I'm in a bunch of unfamiliar people. And I think growing up at a time in the 60s and 70s when so many families were in upheaval from divorces, I think that really helped shape who I am as a father and a husband who's been together with my wife, Katie, for more than 40 years now. So, yeah.
Do you think your upbringing, that those 2 years in the Caribbean, that you grew up faster than others, that you became a more mature soul, right?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I learned how to read and write at ages 4 or 5 and into 6 because I had to, and we actually had a little manual typewriter on the boat, and I learned how to type.
Wow.
Just plunking away at the keys, and I think it definitely was a head start type of experience.
Okay, so let's talk about Bill, those are survival skills too, right? Those are skills that we need today, of toughness and resiliency and how to weather the storms of life.
Yep.
You've been able to deal with those issues at an early age and carry that forward, right?
Yeah.
And
I'll just mention it because you mentioned it, but one of the first things that happened when we left New England in this old wooden sailboat was we were in a gale. We got knocked down, so that the mast was completely in the water, and this was in New York Harbor, and that was a formative experience for me because we literally were like on the verge of sinking, luckily it was a very fast blowing like derecho type storm, and so we got through it. But that was to me was a pretty powerful experience of unexpected, all hands on deck, everything going in chaos, and then getting out on the other end and surviving it.
Yeah, there's a real eye opener when you look at your childhood. Sometimes we you look through life and we have 9 lives, right? You look at circumstances as you grow older and what you went through and how we walk through those time periods that really make us a stronger person. And what do they say? What doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe life is a stepping stones, and from the childhood to your university years or college years. Can you share with the listening audience your university or college years, how that helped you prepare you for the business world?
Yeah, sure. So after public high school in Connecticut, I actually attended a very unique 2-year college in cattle and alfalfa ranch in the high desert of Eastern California called Deep Springs College. And I went there straight after high school, so I had no summer. I went straight there, and then lived and worked at Deep Springs College for 2 years, learning everything from alfalfa farming to horsemanship and slaughtering cows and pigs, and plumbing and electricity and lots of practical skills, and in the context of a liberal arts education. And then I took a break and sailed with my not yet wife, but who would become my wife, sailed from Florida to the South Pacific with my family. And then I came back to the U.S. and transferred to Stanford University. I eventually graduated there in my mid-20s, but I was already married by the time I graduated there.
Why Stanford?
I just really wanted to have the benefits of a premium West Coast university experience, and I think I was drawn there in part because my mom went to Stanford. She didn't graduate from Stanford, but she went to Stanford, and so there was a pull there. But just the incredible campus and the kind of deep multidisciplinary learning opportunities there just really drew me.
And did you always have a feel for nature, environmental, earth science? Like, was that part of your makeup?
Yeah, I mean, since I was a teenager and learning about coevolution and the Gaia hypothesis and things. I mean, ecology and eco-philosophy were really important subjects to me, and Stanford had an incredible Earth System science program that I got involved in. I was also really interested in, ideas, political philosophy, and, regenerative farming and permaculture and renewable resources management. And I could subsume all of that underneath the degree that I got, which was in Earth System science. So, but it was towards the end of that time in the university when I was starting to learn about medicinal herbs and the healing power of natural plants. So,
but it seems like when I go through, what you've done, you opened up a book publishing company, a house, Kavaki.
I did. Yeah, Kivaki Press.
Well, how did that happen? Because here you are, you are interested in the medicinal botanicals, and and you're going to Stanford with to get a degree in environmental earth science. How did this book idea, publishing house concept begin?
Well, there was a serendipity because being a university for me was just a great opportunity to learn about how to organize people and how to communicate in writing and public speaking about things that, I still care a lot about. But I was a co-organizer of a major environmental conference there called the You Can Make a Difference Conference for Earth Day 1990, or the lead up to Earth Day 1990. And this happened to be in the late 80s when desktop publishing software and the whole process of digital prepress was starting up, and it really gave considerable advantage to people who could do this in getting books and journals published. And so I just cultivated those skills, and that got me thinking about helping to amplify the voices of other authors who I could publish their work. It was the serendipity of being in Silicon Valley right when the first digital prepress tools, laser printers, et cetera, were all coming out.
So, do you remember, your first job coming out of university?
Yeah, absolutely. My earliest work was actually in technical writing. Stanford had a Department of Environmental Health and Safety, and they needed someone to revise the university's entire health and safety manual. And so I was like, that's a job for me. So I did that. And then I actually, before Kivaki, I formed my own little digital prepress company called Acacia Prepress. And because of my wife, Katie's earlier collaboration with Rick Scalzo, he's the founder of Gaia Herbs, and she was the very first employee of Gaia Herbs. I ended up collaborating with Rick and publishing some of the early, like naturopathic and botanical medicines journals that we did entirely from a digital prepress platform. And so that was how I actually dipped my first foot into the natural products industry.
So do you think that the natural product industry found you, or did you find the natural product industry?
It was both, because Katie and I had already been studying permaculture, and she was wanting to move from her background in performing arts into medicinal herbs. And so through a friend of a friend connection, when we were bouncing around in the South Pacific, a friend of a friend connection said, when you come back to the States, I have somebody I think you'd like to meet. And it was Rick. It was Rick Scalzo. When he hadn't yet formed Gaia Herbs, it was a company at that time called Elixirs of Life, and he was doing it all on his own, and he needed a production assistant, and she became his production assistant, and that was right at the beginning of Gaia Herbs.
Wow, you think about that. You are right at the beginning, the first inning of Gaia Herbs history. All right, walking in, and what a great way to start a career with knowing where Gaia is today. Yeah.
I mean, it was real serendipity, and it was following. Yeah. Like we say in horsemanship, it's following a feel, and it just felt really, really good and really right. And I could bring skills in terms of the writing and the desktop publishing and whatnot. I could bring real value to that effort.
Now, and how many years were you there at Gaia?
Well, as an employee, I didn't start working at Gaia until 1997, I think. So I was at Gaia for about almost 14 years over 2 long stints.
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful career to work with a company that's changed the face of the world in our industry and still going strong. And still building a community of growers and sustainability and regenerative agriculture. It's like, so at what point did you realize the industry would become your life's work?
Well, once I moved my young family to Western North Carolina in 97 to join up formally with Gaia Herbs, and I was responsible for managing its first big manufacturing move from Massachusetts to Western North Carolina. I felt pretty strongly then that this is where I wanted to be in the industry, and it was that initial, before I was actually an employee, but just doing the publishing work with Rick, that really inculcated in me this sort of intellectual and philosophical curiosity, and also just a practical sense of working with medicinal plants. This idea of respecting the world's many plant-based systems of healing and wellness that go back, my gosh, thousands of years into prehistory. But I also learned that wider acceptance and adoption of traditional plant-based wellness is going to require scientific, validation and more evidence. And so, my early involvement with my wife, Katie, and Rick, it then very quickly morphed into knowing a whole range of, herbalists and naturopaths and botanical researchers. So that was really the springboard for the rest of my career. I mean, literally to this day, the core lesson being listen to nature and observe and respect the unfolding of natural fertility and healing cycles, building human systems that will emulate what we learned from those coevolutionary processes. That for me has been the theme of my whole career.
Yeah, well said, Greg. Is there a favorite ingredient, at Gaia that you just fell in love with, that you wanted to share with our listeners while you were there at Gaia?
I think because it was fairly new for us at the time, but kava, I really liked kava. I think it was fairly new in the industry when Gaia introduced their full spectrum kava extract, and I just really felt that it was a new entrant into the phytomedicinary for most people.
Yes.
And so I guess I would give that as an example. But then I would also give, the fact that at the Gaia farm we grew huge amounts of echinacea, both angustifolia and purpurea, and
Yes.
I think became a pretty deep center provider for that. So I give that as another example.
Yeah. I think, when I got into the cranberry business, Gaia was the leaders in the echinacea industry, and the pulperia and the angustifolia. And it's and I just believe echinacea, you put echinacea on the map, and I've and echinacea, for those who are not aware of, it's people thought when you had a cold you took echinacea, but I always thought you take echinacea and it'll help prevent the cold, all right, but it's a beautiful plant, to begin with. We're so blessed that Mother Nature has given us a plant that stands out in full color and different colors and a health benefits beyond. It's beauty, and so it's which I totally respect. All right, so I want to break for a commercial with Peter for the RFI, and then when we come back, I want to hear about the ahi flower story. Will you stay with us and share? Okay, cool. Take it away, Peter.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to KISC My Health Radio. Today we're excited to spotlight our corporate sponsor, RFI Ingredients. RFI Ingredients is your go-to source for premium, natural nutrition. RFI Ingredients is a vertically integrated manufacturer crafting cutting-edge solutions for dietary supplements, functional foods, and beverages. Using whole food, natural ingredients processed cleanly through sustainable supply chains, they deliver top-quality products like source-sustainable organic ingredients, chromophyte natural colors, and GS15-4 ginseng extract. Whether it's fruit and vegetable powders, botanical teas, or custom formulations via their Blueprints for Health service, RFI helps you innovate and thrive in health. Ready to elevate your products? Visit rfiingredients.com. RFI Ingredients, naturally better. Now back to the show on KISC My Health Radio. Take it away, Peter.
And we are back. Peter Mingils here with Greg Cumberford, and we are talking about different things. I have a couple of quick questions real quick before we change direction. Greg, you had a chance to – I used to be a clammer on the Great South Bay. I grew up on Long Island. So the water is where I used to spend my summers as a high school and an early college thing. So I was a professional clammer. So I spent, 10, 12, 16 hours a day out on the open water. A quick question, because you lived in mountains and you lived on beaches. Which is your favorite? If you had to pick, would it be mountains or beaches?
Mountains. Yeah, I've become more of a mountain-oriented person over the decades, living in Southwest Colorado, and now living close to Mount Hood, and living in the mountains of Western North Carolina, and
Excellent. Okay, good. I was curious because different people always have different things. I thought you might have said beaches, and then my next question would be dirty water or crystal clear water. So the reality is that that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Stephen. Back to you.
Yeah. All right. So I am. Sit back, our listeners, please, and enjoy this next conversation on one of the ingredients that probably have touched my heart. All right, be honest with you, Greg. Not just on the power of this ingredient and what it does in changing people's lives, right? But the visionary, the pioneering you guys have done, the heavy lifting you have done to put ahi flower on the map today, to make it one of the richest sources of omega-3, 6, and 9s out there. So congratulations to you and your team over there at Nature's Crop. Job well done.
Thank you.
Pioneering is not easy. You need to have vision, but you nailed it. You nailed the marketing. with this ingredient. I was totally impressed in how you guys built a community around ahi flower. And so you want to share with people what ahi flower is and the story behind it?
Sure. Well, it's a fascinating story that, of course, captivated me when I first met Andrew Hebard. He's Nature's Crops founder and CEO. I first met Andrew about 15 years ago. The story goes back to the late 1990s in the UK, where Andrew is originally from. Andrew and Nature's Crops have been in this kind of vertically integrated specialty oilseed crops farming business, so farming, oil refining, and sales for more than 30 years. And a fatty acid chemist and colleague of Andrew's, a gentleman named Professor Keith Copeland, who's actually still with us. He's, I think, in his 90s now. But he was a developer at a company in the UK called Croda of Lorenzo's Oil. So maybe you might remember that movie, Lorenzo's Oil, for a boy that had adrenoleukodystrophy. Well, Professor Keith Copeland was studying this, remarkable but rare omega-3 fatty acid called stearidonic acid. And stearidonic acid was it was already showing anti-inflammatory activity, and it was known to be our body's direct metabolite of omega-3 ALA, which is what's rich in, say, flax or chia seed oils. But, of course, as many people in the omega-3 space know, ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, requires a liver enzyme to convert efficiently to longer-chain omega-3s like EPA and DHA, which are the dominant fatty acids in, say, fish or algal oils. And so, as Andrew Hebard often relates, Keith challenged Andrew to find and develop a rich, novel plant-based source of stearidonic acid, because even then, and this was, about 25 years ago, it was clear that our oceans wouldn't be able to supply enough fish oil to meet global omega-3 intake recommendations for EPA and DHA. So if there could be a farmed oilseed crop that was rich in SDA that could be developed, it could, over time, really help the world achieve health benefits that we associate with improved omega-3 status, but far more sustainably, even regeneratively. So Andrew took up that challenge, and it's a real credit to his vision and his, tenacity through, coming up on 30 years to bring this forward. And, this was in the early days before online search was really a thing. So, he would spend hours poring over plant taxonomy tomes in places like the British Museum, and, he would hit upon dozens of potential candidate plants that are known to contain stearidonic acid. But among the richest sources he was able to find back then were seeds of a diminutive little weed that originated originally from the Central Asian steppes, that's called either stone seed or field gromwell. But tellingly, it's a wheat that occurs in wheat farming. And what is there a lot of in Britain? There's a lot of wheat farming. So as Andrew said about finding seed sources for this SDA plant source, it turned out that one of the best early candidates for plant breeding and natural selection was this plant that was growing in a hedgerow in Essex, which was only a stone's throw from actually Nature's Crops offices at the time. So his team worked hard with many germplasm sources, and including that local plant that they accessed, and they just very patiently, painstakingly converted it from this little weed that would prefer not to grow into the robust oilseed crop that UK farmers are growing today, and earning a premium doing that. So those non-GM oilseed lines that we started out, that Nature's Crops started out, and the oil that came from those became the basis for what is now today trademarked as ahi flour. And Nature's Crops opened up a dedicated plant refinery in Prince Edward Island in 2009 to do not only ahi flour but other specialty oilseed crop processing, and so that's been going continuously now for 17 years. So I first became engaged with Nature's Crops just as a consultant back in 2012. I was helping to write a business plan that was answering a question for Andrew and his board at the time. Should ahi flour be scaled up and brought into commerce as a new omega-3 oil? And the answer for me, of course, was a resounding yes. I was totally taken by this, and so I ultimately joined Nature's Crops in 2013 to help lead the process of ahi flour coming into the industry mostly from a regulatory and science standpoint.
Greg, so the oil comes from a seed. So the seed itself is cold pressed, or using
yeah.
Okay, all right.
So we just
chemicals.
just expeller pressed, filtered. We run it through a light steam distillation process, but that's more to do with just taking out some of the impurities, and so there's no chemical refining or hexane solvent extraction or anything like that with ahi flour.
Yeah. So it's very, very, very similar to the cranberry oil. What properties are in the seed oil of ahi flour beyond omega-3?
Well, it's nature's richest source of omega-3 by weight at 65%, but it also has omega-6 GLA, gamma-linolenic acid, and linoleic acid, but it also has oleic acid that we associate with olive oil or avocado oil. So when you add up all of those, you're already over 90% of the content of ahi flour. There's a little bit of naturally occurring tocopherols, and there's a little bit of saturated fat, but it doesn't have any other sort of say antioxidant ingredients or polyphenolic ingredients or things like that. It's just nature's richest source of omega-369 at more than 90%.
And so what do you do with the seed material left over after?
Well, it's getting upcycled. We have lines of products that are in things like dog chews. There's uses in pet and equine areas, then spent seed materials that we can't find a nutritive use for are basically just used as a kind of soil fertilizer enhancement.
Right. Okay. So for our listening audience benefit, could you share what the difference is between people have probably heard of flax, they probably have heard of chia, right? And can you explain really why the North Star ingredient is ahi flour?
Yes. Well, so the main difference from flax and chia and other, we'll just call them ALA-rich plant oils, is that ahi flour is also the richest source of this omega-3 stearidonic acid and omega-6 gamma-linolenic acid. But flax and chia contain no SDA or GLA. But ahi flour, for its part, has about 75% of the ALA in flax or chia oils. Now, hemp and black currant seed also contain SDA and GLA, but ahi flour has far higher levels of SDA and GLA, particularly SDA. It's like 10 times higher. But why that matters is that, and this is probably the key point of the magic, we'll call it, with ahi flour, is that both the SDA and the GLA bypass the liver's first enzymatic step in converting these fatty acids to their longer chain omegas like EPA and DHA. So our bodies are metabolizing ahi flower much more rapidly into this wider range of anti-inflammatory metabolites than happens with other plant sources, but also other marine sources because they contain no GLA. So ahi flower is this kind of optimal way of priming and supporting the body's natural anti-inflammatory and hormonal balance mechanisms, and it does it differently than either flax or ALA only, but also than EPA DHA only omega-3 sources.
Yeah. So, how much oil is in a seed? I know with cranberry oil, we're probably about 10%, 8 to 10% of oil in a cranberry seed. It's so tiny. How much do you get out of ahi flower?
In ahi flower is about 20 to 24%.
Yeah. Right. So, and that flour at the end of the day probably could be looked upon as maybe as a fiber or a prebiotic. Are you doing any work in that area in gut health?
Yes, not with the seed material. Not with the seed materials, but the oil itself is being studied by groups at, for example, like the University of Laval in Quebec City. They published a paper a couple of years ago now that recognized that ahi flower oil, but driven by stearidonic acid, is having this unique gut microbiome mediated effect where the stearidonic acid is causing the beneficial or good microbiota to produce metabolites that have GI tract calming effects and gut barrier integrity effects that would qualify as a prebiotic. So the oil itself is interacting with the gut microbiome and reinforcing, gut-brain integrity and things like that. So that is going on.
I know. It's like I've always had a dream of, it's crazy, but I've always had a dream of taking cranberry oil and adding it to ahi flower oil. And
one thing we really try to we totally agree, and one thing that we really try to emphasize with people in the natural products industry, both on the formulation side, but also on the people that are looking to innovate or even practitioners can do things in dispensaries, is that ahi flower is this really good functional carrier. Where if you're looking for complementary effects that all have to do with whole body anti-inflammatory response and insulin sensitizing response, those kinds of things, think of ahi flower as a carrier. Think of it as a way of bringing more benefits and more bioavailable omega-3 and omega-6 bioconversion to the table.
Yeah. Do you think it can act as a topical for skincare?
Yes. We've actually studied this as well at the Korean Dermatological Research Institute, where they did topical applications of a serum, a topical skin serum. And there's a whole detailed paper on this, but basically it definitely reduced fine lines and wrinkles, and it showed skin moisture, aquaporin upregulation, and it actually promoted dermal cell reknitting after injury. So, and again, we think that ties back to the SDA and GLA content. That was actually something that Professor Coupland was studying back in the 90s. Was topical skin applications for SDA and GLA. So we're very sure that it does have topical anti-inflammatory skin barrier benefit.
So it sounds like ahi flower is still its first really a couple innings of its life cycle, because I'm sure there's probably really great future opportunities for plant-based omega, right? Innovation with ahi flower. Right.
Absolutely.
So, which I'm very excited to watch and see and how you guys grow this. But more importantly, I love the fact that I love watching you grow as a person, and how you're taking your leadership qualities and bringing it to other people to shape them and help them and guide them. Because I look at the man, not about ahi flower, but the person who you are and the wonderful human being that you are, that's always out there trying to lend a hand, provide that guiding light to give people the confidence that they need in themselves, that anything is possible when they put their mind to something. And you've shown that from an early age to where you are today, that that if you have a passion, you have true grit, and you surround yourself with people that are smarter than all of us, right? We can learn from each other, and you could really take an idea, right, and build the science around it and make it happen. And you have shown that, right? And this is wonderful. I want to, I know we're pressed for time here, but I really would love to hear involvement with women.
Yeah, I can go a little further. Yeah.
Okay. All right, because I'll probably have to ask Peter to step in soon on this, but I want you to just touch base on your work with women in nutraceuticals, right? And why you think why your role there, and why people who are not members of Women in Nutraceuticals should, and tell people a little bit about what Women in Nutraceutical means to you and why they need to join.
Well, it all stems from my core belief that women's health and women's wellness is fundamental to our wellness in the world, from the standpoint of families, from the standpoint of how and why fertility happens, and how wise women's traditions from all over the world affect the trajectory of women's wellness, and it ought to play a much more central role in the trajectory of the natural products industry. So, and Katie and I, our only child, our only daughter is a strong, empowered woman herself here at Mandorla Farm. And so when I first learned about Women in Nutraceuticals, I think it was from Susan Kleiner, I just was like, I want to be part of this. And so I've been a member. I'm in my third or fourth year as a member, and I just think that when we think about how to build values of trust, transparency, integrity, and bring more perspectives of women's life stage wellness needs into the process of how we formulate products, Women in Nutraceuticals has become, I think, a focal point for that. And it's also I love it because it's a group of people who are there. It's an all-volunteer organization. And so it's everybody being there to support professional development, C-suite development, or laboratory technical science, research development, whether it's in communications. Every aspect of it is closely mirroring the needs, the growth needs of our industry. So I just feel really important that it's a thing that I would like to put my time, effort into, and so I'm proud to be a mentor within the Women in Nutraceuticals effort. I just started that this past year.
Yeah, well, very blessed. They're very blessed to have you on board. All right, in that group, and you don't have to be a woman to join. So us men out there, please.
Evidently not.
Yep. Yeah. Lend a hand to the women out there. We need them, and they need us, and we need to be united. All right, work together. Yep. All right, and get more women into management positions. All right, and
absolutely.
Out there.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely, and I definitely welcome more of my male colleagues to, if you support the mission, to be involved, because it's just a great group. It's a great organization, and there's no other organization like it in in the world that I'm aware of as far as that. So yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is Peter's going to jump in here soon, and he's going to talk about leadership and success and the importance of mentorship, okay, and also your personal insights on motivation and what gets you up first thing in the morning type of thing. And I don't know how you balance your work life because you're, with your personal life, but you certainly have that recipe to do it. So I want you to share that part with our listening audience. But I want to ask you. I want to ask you a personal question, more or less. If there's anything that you could, if you go back to your younger self at 18 years of age, if there's anything that you could change, what would it be?
Boy, I think I would tell myself to be more patient and to take a much longer view into if you want to make systematic change, recognize that there are vested interests who have put huge amounts of time and effort and infrastructure into that. And if you really want to make a change, you have to be patient and persistent to make those changes that you want to see, and you have to make the changes that you want to see unavoidably compelling, especially to early adopters and to the entities that are watching the early adopters. And then I would also tell myself to just always recognize serendipity and kindness and act boldly on it.
Well, that's great. I guess Stephen might have had to drop off. So he led me with some questions. Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Go ahead, Stephen.
I just loved his last comment. But, Greg, can you hear me okay from your end?
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah. I love your authenticity and who you are as a person.
Thank you.
All right, even though you took all the, acting was, part of your high school, a portfolio of courses you took, I truly believe what you see in Greg Cumberford is who you get, right?
Yeah, what you see is what you get. That is true.
Yeah. And you're a man of integrity. You stand by your word. And I think that's so important that people need to learn early on to be yourself.
Yep.
In our industry.
You can't be anybody else. You can't be anybody else, so you might as well be yourself.
Yeah. And you've learned how to deal with the word no. You know how to say no, all right? Because you can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And because if you overpromise and you underdeliver, then it doesn't sit well, right?
Yeah.
And watching you build the Ahi flower story, you certainly required patience, and it took a team effort. So I know
I happen to be in a more industry facing role, but I can really say humbly that Ahi flower wouldn't exist if it weren't for everyone from the horticulture and agronomy, all of our UK growers, all of our operations staff at the plant and PEI, on the quality side, on the analytical side, on the production side. I mean, everyone has worked so diligently in the belief that Ahi flower will make a difference in the world. So it's happening, and so that's the gratifying thing, is that it is starting to really make a difference. And it is. But you're making a difference in regenerative agriculture, and you may want to talk a little bit about that. And and companies like RFI supporting your cause and being there for you guys, and as they lead the way in the world of organic. And I just love your vision and your mission. All right, of where you want to take the natural product industry, working with the growers. And Peter, I want you, if you can, just to step in, take over, and I want others to listen to the closing of this interview
And I thank you so much, Greg. All right, and I look forward to seeing you at the next show.
Me too. Me
Perfect.
too, you, Stephen. I'm sure I'll see you
All
at
right.
Supply Side.
Yes, thank you. And for listeners, Peter's taken over, and thank you all for another great interview with Greg Cumberford. Go ahead, Greg. Take it away, Peter.
Yep, you just heard from Captain Cran Man Stephen Lukawski, and I have a very novice, naive question to ask, but I'm not afraid to ask. You keep mentioning this flower's name. If I were to look it up, I could probably spell it about 50 different ways. How do you spell the flower?
Ahiflower. No, very good question. Ahiflower. And yes, if you look.
Say that again and slowly for those people that are grabbing a pen.
Ahiflower. Ahiflower.
Got it. So I'm intrigued and impressed and somewhat mesmerized by the details that you provided during this radio show. As far as like your commitment to and dedication for and inquisitive nature and all that sort of stuff relative to how we take the equivalent of what some people would pull out as a weed and you turn it into this life ever-changing product. It's great.
Yeah.
I guess value is in the mind of whoever's valuing it. You take a look at it. You say it's not just a weed or just even a pretty flower. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch the conversation a little bit. On today, in 2026, we have all this pressure with AI and technology, and we know it's a tool, so it can be used for good or bad. What's your view on AI, the positive and the negative relative to what you do now?
Well, I am a OG guy, so I still write everything that I produce for academic and industry journals. I still write everything without AI, and partly that's because I prefer to write in my own authentic voice and not have that get diluted or changed. But the positive of AI, for example, is if I have a diagram, some kind of a metabolism diagram or something, I think AI tools are great for producing those kinds of things, as long as you always maintain oversight and factual correction. What I have found on the negative side with AI is that when I ask different AI tools about research that I know is factually true, and I actually don't get confirmation, where I then have the AI about things that I'm aware of, it feels to me like I'm in a hall of mirrors, and so I don't use AI except to source research that I might not otherwise be aware of, and then I consult original research myself. So it's basically just a more enhanced search tool than if you're just using PubMed, say.
Right. So as a research tool, it's a big question mark. Could be helpful, could be hurtful. If you know your stuff, you realize that it's flawed, because you can ask a question of something and it comes up with something you wonder, like, where the heck did it get that from? And then you go down that rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden you think it's a pathological liar. So go ahead.
And one of our initiatives. One of our initiatives is to train AI about SDA, about Ahiflower, because until we can confidently do search as if we were somebody else, and it still fails to recognize what we know to be true about Ahiflower and ALA SDA metabolism, well, then it's not a useful tool.
Right. Okay. So for the younger crowd that's growing up in the industry, and give them maybe some helpful advice if they want to pursue craft here or pursue a career here, or what the opportunities might be. Because it's different. It's like way different. When you were growing into it, it's totally different. You guys were inventing new things that didn't exist, and it was a different playing field, and you didn't have the same competition, and it was just different. So what would you say to maybe a younger kid who's in college right now, listening to this and saying, this sounds really intriguing, I want to make a difference in the world? Like, where do I fit in? Are there opportunities? Is it going to be eaten up by big companies? I'll let you finish my sentences.
Well, I'll just say that the natural world is still a huge reservoir of undiscovered effects, of undiscovered biological effects and wellness and therapeutic effects. And so I have young people that I mentor now, and there's just an amazing path of discovery that can happen and that is happening. I mean, a lot of the people that I interact with are, in their 20s and bringing forward advancing research. And so I would say just stay curious, and if there's something that drives your passion in terms of a kind of wellness, that a wellness outcome that you want to be involved in, look to the plants and look to observing the plants themselves and the traditional indigenous traditions as well for discovery. And who knows, you might find the next ahi flower.
Wow. Well, I know you have to go, so I want to say thanks for being here. Thanks for Stephen for bringing you here. And I'll leave the last few minutes to you if you have anything you wanted to comment on that maybe you didn't get a chance to comment on. And we can certainly have you back. We can talk to Stephen about that. There's a lot more information, obviously, within you that we could benefit from. So is there anything you want to leave us with, any lasting message?
Well, I would just say that this whole field is really exciting. Research, nutrition, innovation, they're all aligning and helping us advocate for integrative whole plant, whole body wellness and true health span solutions, rather than trying to take a pharmaceutical intervention approach that just deals with isolated symptoms. And we still have a whole century of innovation that we can follow and bring about really deep wellness that's in line with personal and planetary wellness. And that's what inspires me, and I hope inspires others.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for being here, Greg Cumberford. We're going to make sure that we have his website and other things in the show notes. And certainly take a look at ahi flower. I've never heard of that before, so the flower that you're referencing, first time listening to me, I would have spelled it wrong a million times. I probably would have had to ask AI for the right spelling. But the reality is thanks for being here, and I want to say thanks to Stephen, and thanks for our Building Fortunes Radio listening audience and our KISC My Health Radio listening audience. You're going to find this on Amazon and Spotify and KISCMyHealth.com and all the other places. Greg, thanks for being here, and I'm going to politely exit our radio show. Thanks, guys. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the KISC My Health Radio show on Building Fortunes Radio. Thanks for listening. This KISC My Health Radio show is brought to you by Stephen Lukawski. Stephen is known as the Cranberry King, universally known as Captain Cran Man. Stephen has over 30 years of experience working with manufacturers and marketers of dietary supplements and natural ingredients to make this world a healthier and a better place. You can check out Stephen Lukawski on LinkedIn and on the KISCMyHealth.com website. We are glad you listened in. Spread the word and check out previous KISC My Health Radio episodes. Bye for now. It's been our privilege to have you listen in. At Building Fortunes Radio, we wish you the success you deserve and are willing to work for. Now go make the world a better place.